Hey friends, if you've ever been browsing makeup trends, especially summer makeup trends, and you think to yourself, that's gorgeous, but that's just not for me. The colors are too warm, is it too heavy, is it too this or that, it just doesn't align with you. How do we make the makeup looks and trends feel more at home with you? In today's video, I'm going to share with you a trend that is bubbling and has been on my radar called the Guava Girl, Guava Glow, and the references I've seen, they're very warm, but I wanted to show you how to put it more in that soft summer, cool summer seasonal color palette to where it feels more inclusive. You can have this warm, juicy pink look without the orange warm tone. So without further hesitation, let's get into creating this warm summer glow together. Get ready for today's video. I am going to start with a little bit of skin prep or skin refresh. I was invited to a party at the end of August, and it's a tropical themed party, and I had the idea that this was the perfect video to plan that makeup look as it really fit into this trend. So you could either do the routine I talk about, my sweatproof summer makeup routine, or a more streamlined routine, which I'm going to do today, and that is just a nice hydrating sunscreen. So I'm going to be using the Beauty of Joseon Relief Aqua Fresh Rice Plus B5 sunscreen. This has an SPF 50 plus, PA rating of 4 plus. I love this sunscreen so much. This tube was sent to me very kindly by Yes Style. I've already been through 2 tubes of this on my own before it was sent to me. So when it was offered to me for free, it was a very easy product for me to talk about because I've already used 2 of them and I love it. If you were someone who liked the original Beauty of Joseon Sun Relief sunscreen, but you found it a little too luminous, this might be the perfect sunscreen for you. This is a chemical filter sunscreen, but it features a blend of sunscreens that are approved for use in Asia as well as Europe and Australia. Juvenile T150, Mexerol XL, Mexerol XS, Juvenile A+, and Tenosorb S. And what I love about this blend of sunscreens is they are all chemicals. So that means they are going to go on the skin clear. But unlike a lot of the North American chemical sunscreen filters, they don't burn and sting my eyes or my sensitive skin, which struggles with rosacea. That is really beautiful, and it grips under makeup so well that where if you don't really need a primer, this could be your easily makeup skincare bridge. This features skin-loving ingredients, ceramides, sodium hyaluronate, and glycerin. So a really nice blend of skin-loving ingredients and humectants. So it's gonna help nourish and soothe the skin while pulling moisture in from the ambient environment, lump it up, and just make it feel a little bit more refreshed. This also features some really beautiful soothing ingredients like oat kernel extract, panthenol, and beta-glucan, which are really nice for calming down and soothing the skin, especially if you've had a little too much sun exposure. This can help to soothe it. I'm still gonna give it a little bit of time to dry down. That way it's gonna give it the best chance to work under my makeup. But we are gonna jump into eyes. I'm of 2 minds. Do I wanna go dramatic, or do I want to let my lip and cheek color take the show? Because I really wanna play into this guava pink, guava glow, guava girl trend, because I think the inside of the guava fruit, that really beautiful, almost electric pink, is so beautiful. So when I saw this was a bubbling trend, I really wanted to see how could I make it my own? How could I fit it into the summer seasonal color palettes and make it my own? So if I'm thinking that, that would mean we need to keep the contrast on the medium to low side for the rest of the look. So that means if I do a bold eye, a pop of color on the cheek and lips, it could feel very heavy. If you're someone who can handle more contrast, that might work really well. So today, I think I'm going to pare the eyes back just a little bit and let my lips and cheeks take the show. I'm going to start by prepping my eyes with my MAC Pro Longwear Paint Pot in Painterly. You could use your concealer if you want to, but on days when I want glamour, like if I'm getting ready for a party, I want my eyelids to be a blank canvas, prepped and ready for makeup. So the paint pots are going to function very similarly to a concealer, except they dry down. And what I love about this dry down is if it's hot, if it's humid, it's going to help to grip and it's not kind of smudge and budge. Now, if you're someone who has extremely oily eyelids, then you could take a mattifying primer or a gripping primer and just apply a teeny tiny bit over your eyelids and then apply your primer. That's like a double priming technique. So that way you're gonna make your eye makeup a little bit more budge proof and crease resistant. Now, something I like to do, I like using a brush and looking down. That way I can press this all the way down to the root of my eyelashes, and then I will flick it up into my brows. Now, my brows, I have microblading, which I don't regret, but since I've had my microblading done, I fully embraced who I am, and I'm going through my gender affirming journey, and my masculine brow shape that I loved just doesn't really suit me where I'm at now in this stage of life. So I try to cover it up, and it's tattooed brows, so it is tricky to cover up. So I like to use my eyeshadow primer as a base, and then if I need to, I can always go back in with a little bit of color corrector and concealer to really help to soften that down. But normally, once the eyeshadow's on, this is more than enough. Now, since this is a cream and it's on my eyelids, the eyelids are thin, warm skin, so they can crease just like anything else. So I like to take a dampened beauty sponge and press right over. This, just like using on the rest of your face, is going to help lift off excess product and help to further ensure your makeup is not going to crease and smudge. It doesn't matter if I'm going for a heavy, full glamour, deep dark smoky eye or something more light and airy like I'm doing today. I still want it to last and look as good as it possibly can for as long as it can. And when my friend hosts these different types of parties, we're normally in like a smaller space and it can get really warm. So even though the temperature outside might come down, the temperature inside from all the different guests is just getting really warm. And if the outfit I'm planning on wearing, it's this really cute set, but it's not the most breathable, so it could get a little stuffy. So if I do sweat, I want to make sure my makeup is going to stay looking flawless, like I am not sweating. And oh my goodness, if you have ever worn a wig in the heat, that is a whole new level of heat I was not prepared for when I started with wigs. But hey, here we are. It's a part of life, and there are steps and tricks to make it more manageable. For my Guava summer eyes, I'm going to be using the Roman Better Than palette in shade number 3, Rosebud Garden. This was one of the very first ones I purchased. What I love about K-Beauty is when you're looking at the product information, they'll normally have like to see more if you're on Yes Style, or if you're on Olive Young, just scroll down and it'll give you more information about the product. There's normally a color chart, and you'll see like a light to dark, warm to cool grid, and it will have the different color options placed on the grid, and you can see what's light, what's dark, what's warm, what's cool. And if you go to light cool, that would be your summer seasonal color palette. This falls very neatly in the soft summer, soft autumn kind of family, so I'm going to use this today. And what I love is, depending on your skin tone, these shades can shift slightly cooler or warmer. So since I am on the neutral cool side, these shift a little bit warmer. If you're someone who's warmer, they would shift a little bit cooler. I'm going to start with this matte neutral pink. It's an interesting, almost like a gray pink, and this is a really nice base shade. I love using these muted gray pinks because it's going to add a very subtle smoky quality to the eyelid. And even though it's a very subtle shade, it's ever so slightly deeper. Since I have a little bit more brightness in my coloring, when I add gray, it tends to almost create more of a sultry shadowed effect. So where this has more of a gray base, it's gonna give me a little bit more drama. So I can stick with those lighter shades, but create shape and drama. So since this has more of that muted base, it's almost gonna create like a no makeup smoky eye effect. It's still in the realm of feeling natural, but a little bit more smoky. Now that I have that on, I'm gonna use the tip of the brush just to buff out my edges. If it's not perfect or you don't create a perfect shape, we've not applied any complexion makeup, so make mistakes. We can always clean it up and perfect it. That's a great thing with doing eyes first. If something doesn't go quite right, you can always course correct. So now I want to add a little bit more depth, and I'm thinking today I want to do a traditional dark to light smoky eye. So a very traditional vertical smoky eye placement. So I I'm gonna move into this more mid-tone pink, and I'm gonna use that same brush. With this fluffy blender brush, this is a BK Beauty A503. I am packing and getting up the shadow with the side of my brush or the belly of the brush, and I'm using this to pack on my shadows. Since it's a large fluffy brush, it's gonna give me a softer deposit of color, but when I stamp, I'm gonna maximize what this brush can do. And then since I want a softer look, this doesn't allow me to have softness but build that overall effect that I want to create. So now I've just got a tissue. I am going to wipe off any of the excess shadow that's on my brush, and I'm gonna go back to that first muted pink shade, and I want to use this looking straight ahead into the mirror. I like to look straight ahead and go right above where I applied that darker shade, and just use this to smoke it out, back and forth, back and forth. I always like to point my brush up, that way it's going to diffuse upwards and give me the look of a larger lid space. I'm going to now switch to a small angled brush, and I am going to move into the darkest shade in the palette. This is an interestingly, it's like almost like a rosy terracotta brown, almost like a rosy terracotta chocolate. And what I like about this is it's going to just help me intensify the lashes, but it's going to still have enough softness and translucency to help me blend things out. So when I'm looking into my mirror, I have a mirror placed just down so that way I can look down and stretch out my eyelid. Since it is more of a smoky look, I'm gonna line from the outer corner to the inner corner, and I'm just pressing and pulling. This doesn't need to be tidy at all. And I'm gonna go over 3 times. Just really trying to push it into the root of the lash line. Now that I have that on, I'm gonna go for a smaller pencil brush. So if we compare the sizes, it's just a little bit smaller. This is the BK Beauty A504, and the angled eyeliner brush I used is the Hourglass number 10. I'm gonna go into that slightly brown, looking down, and I'm just gonna smudge back and forth over that darkest shade. Now, this part with this color story, it can be scary, especially if you're someone who has a cooler skin tone than I do. This could start feeling like you're entering like a sickly pink look, because it can almost start looking like one of those white rabbits with the red eyes, where you just have a lot of this ruddy color around the eye. But have faith. I'm gonna now go back to that larger brush, no extra product, and I'm gonna pat over the edge of that slightly darker shade. You've got this row of glitters. This light shimmery one is more of like a really sparkly top coat, so I might use that at the end, but for now I want to focus on these 3. The gold might pull a little too gold for this look, so I'm going to start with this more coppery rose gold pink, and I'm just going to use my index finger and place this right over my eyelids. And since I want this to feel more effortless, I'm going to take it from inner corner and let it taper out towards the outer corner. Since it's a more of a wash of color, it's going to diffuse what we just did and make it feel a little bit more effortless. As we proceed with the rest of the makeup, it's just gonna further enhance. By starting here on the inner corner and tapping and pulling, I'm letting the edge of my finger hook right under my brow bone. So that's gonna give me a natural gradient. I blended my base higher, so I'm gonna get a natural gradient there. So that's gonna give me a little bit more of a defined crease area. And as my finger moves from the inner corner to the outer corner, I'm losing the shadow on my finger because it's being deposited onto my eyelid. So I'm getting less color out here. So we're gonna create a softer gradient color. I like a pop of drama, so I'm gonna go to the lightest shimmer, and I'm gonna put this just on the very inner corner of my eye. And this is just gonna make things feel light and bright, like a little spotlight on the eyes. Now at this point, you could move on to the face. I don't know how much more definition I want on the eye, so I'm gonna go through and go ahead and apply my mascara, and that will allow me to see if I want to apply any type of eyeliner. I'm using the Etude Curl Fix mascara in gray brown. This, I believe I spoke about in the last video that would have gone up before this, and it's a really beautiful mascara. But if you're looking for a lot of drama, this is definitely more of a natural everyday makeup mascara, but it gives a really beautiful defined base to your eyelashes. So if you're someone who can't hold a curl, if you smudge, if your lashes just don't cooperate through the day, you can use this as a priming base because it stays lightweight and fluffy, so that way you can hold the shape that you want and help to prevent smudging and flaking, and it doesn't look heavy or bog down the lashes. What I love about this gray brown shade is on days when I'm not wearing makeup, if I'm just using like a tinted sunscreen and like a little bit of a lip balm, this gives my lashes the perfect depth of color that doesn't look makeup-y. It just makes my lashes look super natural, especially if I go through with a little fine metal lash comb. I want my lashes bigger, so I'm gonna use my Maybelline Firework Washable Mascara in the shade Black Brown. This does such a beautiful job thickening up your mascara and just making it a little bit more dramatic without going too crazy. Yeah, the Maybelline mascara, it just definitely helped to amplify this look, and I can really see it now coming together and creating more of that soft smokiness I was looking for. And I really think this eye look is gonna go so well with the rest of our guava pink makeup look. Now that I've got mascara on, I'm just gonna go through and give eyelids one more blend over, and this is just going to help me further finesse the shape. Since we added that, I want to pull out my shadow just a tiny bit. I still want to keep it round, but I want to lift here at the outer corner just a little. So after I go back and forth, I'm going to take this corner and go up to the brow, and then when I get to the high point or the round of my socket, I'm going to just like a little triangular shape. Today were the day of the party, and I would probably use a little bit of my One Size Beauty Secure the Sweat waterproof primer, and this would help stop the shine, especially in my T-zone area. Since that is a pricey product and I'm just doing a test run, I want to give my House Lab foundation another go. The reason I say give it another go is because I have two shades. It's a foundation I mixed on because I've been working with it for quite a while and I just can't figure out my feelings, and I feel like a lot of it's because of the shades I have. So I have shades 0, 15 Warm, which House Lab has similar undertones to matte. Warm is pink red, Cool is yellow or golden. It's like the MAC NC&W coloring. So 15 Warm, which is a more pinky undertone, and then I have number 110 Light Neutral, which is just a kind of middle down the road neutral leaning golden foundation. So the very first shade I purchased is 015 Warm. Gorgeous shade for helping to even out and match my body skin. Like you can see, once I blend it in, it pretty much disappears into my body skin. But if I try to apply this all over my face, where my face has this redness from rosacea and then my neck has some yellowing from sun damage, it is glaringly white. And if I apply it all over, my face looks very textured from the contrast between the darker face and the lighter foundation. So I need to go in the middle. So that brings me to the next shade I purchased, which is 110 Warm. And 110 Warm is too dark for my face. So what I like to do is I normally will always mix them. I don't want to just wipe this off because it will disturb the sunscreen underneath. So I'm just going to blend them together. There we go. Now we can see it's a better shade match. I will normally do like a 2 to 1. So 2 parts of 015 to 1 part 110. And when it looks like this, when it's deeper and slightly more peachy looking on the back of my hand, that is when I feel good about the shade. And I like to switch to a larger beauty sponge and use this to apply my foundation. I have not tried applying my House Labs with a sponge that I can remember because I really got into the habit of using brushes, and then the other day I was trying just applying my foundation start to finish with a sponge with the Maybelline Lumi Matte Foundation, and that foundation looked beautiful. It was the first time I fell in love with how that foundation looked on my skin, because in a previous video I shared with you I wanted to love it, but it just wasn't looking right, and I found with minimal skincare and skin prep, letting it dry down and then applying it from start to finish with a sponge, it looked beautiful. So that made me curious. Maybe if I do the same thing with my House Labs foundation, it would thin it out enough to make it look a little bit more skin-like. The way I felt about the House Labs foundation, it's gorgeous, but it can go very makeup-y very quickly. And I love wearing makeup. I love wearing a lot of makeup. I love makeup, but I don't always want it to look like makeup because I like to try to blend in with my surroundings surrounding world the best I can. And as a, well, I guess now I could say formerly like 6 foot tall person, wearing a lot of makeup felt intimidating because a lot of the women around me didn't wear a lot of makeup. So if I showed up being almost 6 foot tall, I mean, goodness, I'm almost always in some type of heel. Don't let my height stop me. I might be 6 foot, but I will still wear a 4-inch heel. Sometimes heels are just way more comfortable than flat shoes. But anyway, so I tend to like to wear more subtle makeup, especially complexion makeup, when I'm trying to blend in. So that is something I like to do. And the House Labs was always a tricky foundation for me to do that with, because whenever I would apply it, it would just always look like makeup. And hopefully this manner of applying it will make it look a little bit better. This blend of the 2 shades does really great for blending in the more yellowy side of my neck. Only downside with this is now that my face has gone more neutral to neutral warm, even though it's still technically in the realm of soft summer, because soft summer is a neutral leaning cool palette. So you can have some elements of warmth in the seasonal color palette. But for me, if I bring my hands up to my face, I'm in a similar depth of color, but it's too warm yellow. So I need to bring some pink back to my skin. Before I go on with that though, let's come in close to see how this foundation looks. Okay, that's impressive. I need to blend on the side of my nose a little bit more, but this foundation has never looked this good. Wow, I might be going back to just using sponges all the time. This is a Real Techniques Miracle Complexion sponge. So now to add some pink back to my skin, I'm gonna start with color corrector. So Huda Beauty Faux Filter in the shade Cherry Blossom. Since I have this pink tone on my lids, I don't want to take my color corrector too far in, because since this is a color corrector, it's gonna have a little bit more warmth in it. And if I put too much warmth here, it's gonna take away from the more bright pinky tones I have in the inner corner of my eye. So I'm gonna keep my under eye color corrector just in the middle. On the lower part of my face where I like to color correct, I'm gonna use the shade Peach, which has a warm orange undertone. Take a little bit right through there. I am gonna be absolutely unnecessarily fussy with my concealer. I'm gonna take a little bit of my House Labs. The House Labs concealer I have is in shade 01 Fair Neutral. I purchased this as a brightening shade and it's decent. The neutrality of the shade does lean a little bit more on that warm yellow golden side. So I find if I use this as my only concealing shade, it can go a little too yellow. I'm gonna counterbalance it with a little bit of NARS Vanilla. I find NARS Vanilla on its own, if I mix with my color corrector, it can just go a little odd. So I like to use a few dots of my Tarte Shape Tape Ultra Creamy, and that's just gonna help again bring a little bit more neutrality. And I'm gonna take my foundation brush just to pat this out just a little bit. Mostly what I'm gonna do is I just want to spread the color. The blend of shades that we've got going on are doing really well. So even though I'm not blending out the concealer, it's still doing a really good job at harmonizing with the tone. Now I'm gonna do the same thing under the eyes. Since I've got a blend of 3 different shades under my eyes, I'm gonna tap back and forth. I'm gonna leave this alone for a moment and I'm gonna switch over to blush. We can't have a Guava makeup look without some pink. Huda Beauty Blush Filter Liquid Blush in the shade Bubblegum. I was really excited when I saw this shade pop up online. I was a little disappointed because it's not as cool toned as I thought. So if you're someone who falls into the cool true summer or cool true winter color palette, you might find this shade has a little bit too much warmth for you. But if you're a light summer, soft summer, or even maybe even if you're a bright winter and you want to use this as more of like a base shade, it could be really pretty. I love this, especially applied with a sponge. It just diffuses out so beautifully. And I'm gonna tie a little bit here because whenever I do like a summer party look, there's just something that I can't help myself from creating a little bit of a gradient, because anytime I think about summer parties, I think about summer sunsets. So I like to create a little bit of a sunset effect where my cheek makeup fades into the edge of my eye makeup. That's also a great trick if you're someone who wants to take away from heaviness, whether you are someone who has a broad lower face, if you're carrying a little bit extra weight, or if you're someone like me who has a broader lower face and extra weight on their lower face. If you pull your colors upwards, it will take the attention away from down here. The same thing, even if you're someone who is experiencing some signs of aging and you're getting jowling, if you pull the attention up, it will help to de-emphasize. So I'm gonna pull this up. The only downside with a sponge that I'm very much remembering now is it eats up a lot of your products. So if you're someone who has a hard time going through your makeup products, that could be a huge advantage. But in this economy, with the prices of even drugstore makeup going up, I'm gonna start with your brush and then finesse with a beauty sponge. Are these scented? Oh, it is scented. It has like a sweet candy smell. Never realized that before. You can also see adding that little bit of pink to this outer corner, it's cooling down the overall tone of the pinky warmth of the eyes. So if you look on this side versus this side, since where it's a little bit more separated from the cheek color, it's looking warmer. But if I pull in this more bright pink, it's going to help tone it down. And I always like to bring a little bit here. Now, if you're someone who feels like something got a little out of hand, take your foundation sponge and you can pat that on the edge. Before I add more blush, I'm gonna go back and start blending out my concealer. If you're someone like me and you have unwanted facial hair, or you have melasma, or you have something that creates a darker undertone to any part of your face, blend out slightly further than you want it to be, and that will help to further diffuse it. Because if you just apply it to the area that you're trying to color correct, it can sometimes look a little artificial. So even though I didn't apply it out here, I still like to blend it in. Don't forget the underside of your nose. If you need to, put your finger against the tip of the nose and blend in the crease of the nostril and then down the neck. I feel like I do need a little bit more blush. I am going to try applying it directly onto the cheek. Well, that's definitely helping to give me more color, but I might have gone over, but that's okay. This stuff happens. That is a great thing with like doing makeup like this. This is like a makeup troubleshoot. Whatever I do on this side, I'm gonna do on this side. So I did 3, little carried away with that first one, but that's okay. I just want a little bit more conservative with the back one. I'll start by blending up and back, and then I can blend down. Another tip, when you're blending out your makeup, try to look forward. I always like to mention I have a large mirror behind my camera, and I also have one slightly lower. Whenever I'm doing my makeup, I always like to look straight ahead into the mirror behind my camera, and a lot of times it's just habit. A lot of us have a habit of wanting, if we're working on this cheek, we want to blend here, and then we want to go over and do this. But sometimes if you're going left to right, if I can't see the right side of my face and I'm just blending the left, and then I do this here, they could become a little off balance. So it's always good to look ahead and just make sure you're balanced. That turned out really well. Okay, I want to add just a pinch more brightness. So I'm gonna use a little bit more of the House Labs concealer just right here and a little bit right here. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm looking for any shadowy areas. So here I want to lift the appearance of the chin and brighten up this little shadow. On the smile line, I'm gonna add a little bit more light. On the philtrum, I want to add a little bit more light and tie it into the underside of my nose, because that will make this look shorter. So that way when I overdraw the top lip, it will make this space look a little bit shorter. And here, where I apply it a little bit, right here, just beneath the glabellar complex, to take away from the brow ridge. I don't need any of these areas with a ton of coverage. I'm just gonna go ahead and blend those out. If you've already got your eye makeup on and you're blending out your concealer and you feel like it's going in an area where you don't want it to, that's when it's great to come back in with a small brush. You can even use a tiny little sponge. You could use your finger too, but when I am trying to keep some precision, I like to work with a little bit more of a smaller controlled tool. That is a downside of doing your eyes first, because now we're trying to work around the eyes and I'm covering up a little bit of that highlight, but that's okay. I can go through reinforce it. I can go through, blend and feather around the brow so that way there's no hardness around the brow. I can take any of the residual right here where I want to cover up, blend, blend, blend. Now something I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap right over the lip line. Now I'm gonna go back to my sponge, give it a nice blend. I think we have a really pretty base. So far our Guava Glow look is off to a really nice look, and now we are gonna go through and add some frostiness to really make it more at home in this cooler summery palette. Now that I've blended around different parts of my face, I'm gonna use my finger to tap out around my eyes. I always like to press around my eyes with my fingers just because it's gonna further help melt everything down. Now I can go through and powder. Dip into my powder container, work it there, and I'm gonna press this under my eyes. I like to take it here on the side of my nose, give it a little bit of like a contour effect. When I'm blending up, I love that lifted technique, and I also like brightening here on the temple. So I like to brighten up there, and that will just help add a little bit of fullness. Whatever I have left, I'm gonna go ahead and tap right here, and then wherever I added that brightening concealer, I'm gonna put a little bit of this powder right there. I pretty much like to press my powder on and then wipe off the excess right away. Today, since I was talking, this has stayed on longer than it normally does. If you're someone who is very dry, you can go ahead and add a little bit of a setting spray. I feel okay, so I'm gonna go through and just start adding color to my complexion, and I'm gonna actually start by adding color to the lips because I've got the eyes on, I need lips so I can really make sure my cheek color is harmonious and creating balance between my eyes, lips, and cheeks. So when I was thinking about creating a more cool toned take on the Guava girl, Guava pink, Guava makeup look, I was like, what can I do as a Guava pink? And one of the first things that came to my mind is my Roman Dewy Full Water Tint. This is the shade number 10 Murmur Ink, and this came out with the Milk Grocery Collection. It's one of the few shades I have repurchased because it is gorgeous and it stains the lips. It never feels dry. Now, something I've been doing is just that little brush I use to apply the matte pot. While it's on and freshly applied, I'm going to angle the brush inwards the fleshy bit of my lips and just clean up my edges. So that way, if there's any excess color bleeding outside the lip line, I'll pick it up. And where I use this to apply the MAC paint pot to the eyes, I find it also is a really great base for helping to prevent feathering. I find when I powder my lips and just to go in with a more hydrating lip product over top, I get the stain power from the powder and the stain power of the product I'm applying, but also that more glossy hydrating aspect of the Dewy Full Lips tint. It helps to bring some moisture back. So now you're getting the best of both worlds, and this is gonna give us a really great base to apply our lipstick, lip liner, whatever you want on top later. Adding color to the face, I'm gonna start off with highlighter, and I wanna use something a little bit more neutral because I don't wanna go too icy. This is a warmer take on a cool tone look. So that means we're gonna add a little bit more neutrality versus iciness. I'm gonna be using an old drugstore favorite Wet n Wild Mega Glow highlighter, and this is in the shade Blossom Glow. This product just goes perfectly with the Real Technique setting brush. I feel like this is such a classic YouTube combination. I believe it was either 2014 or 2015. I think it was Toddy Westbrook was one of the first people I heard talking about these blushes. And at that time, Wet n Wild had also recently came out with some ombre blushes. And I remember I was, I don't know what this says about me as a person, but outside of like Lisa Eldridge, Tati was one of the first YouTube channels that I really fell in love with, and her product recommendations were everything to me. So when she was raving about these Wet n Wild highlighters and the blushes, I needed to find them. I needed to have them in my life as soon as possible. So I remember I was off work that day and I went to like 3 or 4 different Walgreens and CVS's, and I found the highlighters there, and then I ended up finding the blushes at Target. Wow, so that means that Mega Glow highlighter has been in and out of my collection for over a decade. That's crazy. I did just go over with a damp sponge, and that's because that formula of the highlighter, it's really beautiful, but it is prone to accentuating texture. So I always like to use the dampness of the sponge just to melt in the powder to the skin a little bit more. And interesting enough, whenever you have something that's a little bit warm, when you further melt it into the skin, it also helps to soften down the undertone of the product because it's gonna make it feel a little bit more translucent. So you're shearing it out just a bit. Now for bronzer, if you are a true cool tone person, go back to my seasonal color video for the Cool True Summer Color Palette, because I talk there more about how to create a custom bronzing shade, because a lot of bronzers in a traditional sense, even when they're marketed as more of a cool tone shade, they can make you feel a little orangey, and we don't want to be orange. So I'm going to use something that is more of a traditional bronzer, and if you're someone like me who is more neutral to cool, you can normally go away with a nice bronzer. This is the Gucci Soleil Matte Bronzer in shade number 1. This is a little bit more rosy. It's quite pigmented, so I am going to apply this a little bit more liberally than I normally would, because I'm going to share with you another little trick. But I do love the shade for adding warmth. It's so funny thinking back to like the 2014-13 era of makeup. It was around that time I really got into the Real Techniques brushes. And fun story, I have a tower right there. In one of the drawer, I have a bag full of old makeup brushes. And I remember when I started YouTube, I realized that the Real Techniques brushes no longer had the black handles. So I didn't want to share products on camera that people couldn't find. So I purchased a newer set. But all of my original Real Techniques brushes with like the colored ferrule and the black rubbery base, I still have them. They're all in those drawers. And a lot of times I will reach for some of those brushes when I'm traveling. But I have always loved using the Real Techniques blush brush as a bronzer brush. I've never really loved it for blush. I've always found it was a little too big. My all-time favorite blush brush was a blush brush from Sonia Kashuk. I still have that brush too, and that's on the shelf behind me. There's a center cubby where I have some little makeup archive products, and that is still there. That was an Allure Best of Beauty Award winner in like 2008, 2009, and I remember I saved up my money and I bought that brush for myself, and I loved it. So since I'm trying to build up my bronzer and make it a little bit warmer and more pigmented than I generally would, using it with this large fluffy brush, it's taking a bit longer than it normally would if I was just to use a very basic brush for bronzer and just really kind of pack it on. But this will get us there, and this is more of like how I would build it up for a special occasion. I don't mind taking the time to build up my layers more thinly. The video that went up before this, I think I'm calling it like a strawberry jelly look or something along that line, I shared my fondness for the Stacey Mood Cheek palette. This is number 11 Cream Soda, and you have these really beautiful pastel shades, and you might look, especially down here, like this light pastel pink and this like pastel blue. What are you gonna ever do with those? But what I like to use this palette is as color correcting shades. So if you apply a bronzer and you put it on and you're like, oh no, we are entering in Cheeto territory, grab this palette, because if you're going to orange, think to the color wheel, what is the opposite of orange? Blue. If something's pulling too golden or too warm, what's the opposite of that? Purple. Think about if you're a blonde and you use a toning shampoo. If you're noticing yellowing in the hair, you would use a purple shampoo. If you're noticing those more ambery orange tones, you would use a blue shampoo. So having these here, you can use a mix of the two shades. So I'm going to use a little bit of the purple and the blue, and now I can just go through and run it right over this bronzer. You can see it's turning softer. Here I've got that more warm tawny pink. Here we're just getting a soft, almost like a gentle warmth to the skin that doesn't feel orange. And a little fun trick, take the point of your brush, this is a reference number 18, I'm gonna use those both here, and I'm gonna go right over the socket of my eye eye. This will further help tone down any over warmth that you might not want. So far, the only place I've been able to locate this is locally in Omomo, which is like a Japanese store that's all across Canada. But I've also found it online at Olive Young and Yes Style. And this will normally set you back about around 15 to 20 US dollars. So it's a really great price and you need such a small amount of product. If you're looking at the two pink shades, you could use the lighter pink to brighten up. Maybe your highlighter pulled a little too golden, you could soften that. And if you want to intensify your blush, you can mix the darker pink and the purple to add a little bit of light. That way you are able to maximize your palette if you ever decided to purchase it. Around my mouth, I'm noticing it's pulling a little golden. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna mix it all together and I am going to work that together. And you'll notice I went in a circle and I mixed all of them together because I need some of the pink to brighten. So I want to color correct and brighten, and now things are in harmony. So when I was trying to find my Guava blush, the first thing that came to my mind is the Chanel Jeu Contraste blush in number 170 Rose Glacier. I believe this shade is available in most of the world except for the US. This is one of my favorite shades. Look how pretty it is. I'm going to apply this with an angled blush brush and I'm going to buff it on the cheeks. So I've got my highlighter and bronzer underneath and that Huda Beauty liquid blush. I am going to wrap this, touching the outer corner of my lower eyelid, and look at that color and look at the harmony it's creating. Now we just have this really beautiful gradient of color from eyes to cheek to lip, where I am really buffing it into the skin and creating like a soft glaze. I'm able to build the shade up, and this does have a little bit of a golden reflect. So if you're someone who is sensitive to warmth, this might still pull a little too warm, but I find it just adds a really beautiful liveliness. If you are someone who loves the idea of NARS orgasm, but you apply it and it looks like an orange stripe, hi, that's me. I've purchased that blush like 2 to 3 times in my life, and it's still a product when I go into Sephora. Anytime I see something by NARS that says orgasm, whether it's the blush, the liquid blush, any of the lip products, I'm like, oh, I want that. But then it's just one of those shades that pulls so warm on me. This is like a cooler toned take on NARS orgasm because you have that really beautiful shimmer and it is just so fresh and beautiful. If you are in the US and you can't get your hands on this, 2 of my favorite alternatives, and interesting enough, one's a little bit warmer, one's a little bit cooler, and you could buy both of them and still spend less than half the price of this. And they both come from my favorite holy grail affordable makeup blushes, the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blush. If you want something slightly more on the cool tone side, you are gonna like number 7 Cool Coral. That's so pretty. If you want something a little bit warmer, then you are gonna like number 1 Shimmery Rose. So this is almost a little bit more peachy. Look how pretty those are. Hold on, I'm gonna re-swatch. Oh, it's interesting. So swatched out, the Chanel actually looks cooler than the Cool Coral shade from Essence. On the cheek, you're not gonna notice as much, but either way, whether you have any of the Essence shades or the Chanel, you feel like it pulls too warm, I'm gonna show you a trick. If it still feels warm, we can always go back to our little Basique palette. Since this is a pink pulling warm, this would be a great opportunity to mixing all of your shades together, and we can just go through, cool it down. If you're trying to use this solely as a blush, it might feel a little underwhelming, but using it as a temperature adjuster, it is going to just be so wonderful. The way that has pulled everything together is just so yummy. I love it. I feel like the lashes and everything's good there. I'm gonna add a little bit of brow gel just to add a little bit of shape back. My hair is gonna be down. I have got a curtain fringe, so I don't need a lot to the brow look. Before I start lips, I want to let everything dry down and settle down, see how things are gonna wear, see if I need to take away any powderiness, because I want my skin to look fresh and plump. MAC Fix Plus and a very generous spray of it. while I'm letting the Fix Plus sink in and do its job, I'm going to take my Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat Lip Pencil in the shade Super Size Me, and I am going to gently contour the lip. Since I've already got the stain in the liner creating the lip shade, you could use a gloss, but for me, if it's a summer party and my hair is going to be down, the last thing I want is a sticky gloss that's going to end up with more of my hair in my gloss. I like to use a more shiny lipstick. I'm going to use one of the refillable Dior lipsticks. This is a case I thought was so beautiful, and when I purchased the case, I chose the refill in the shade Rose Celeste. I'm going to use this to brighten up the center of the lip, and since this is like a brighter pink tone, the more I dab and blend out, it's going to help blend into the lip pencil, and if I rub, it's going to soften the transition between the slightly deeper liner and the lipstick, and you've got that base of the stain underneath anchoring everything down. And what I love about the color combination is it's almost like this reflection of the guava fruit, so you're having like this juicier pink skin of like the fruit, and then it has that deeper ring before it moves into like the green skin or rind, and that's what I feel like this versioning is. And now we've got this really beautiful look, so let's put some finishing touches on the look. So now that we've got hair situated, I'm gonna give it one more brush over with my sponge. This is cute. Now I just need the fringe to stay out of my face. That's something I've still not gotten used to. I've been doing wigs, longer hair for over a year now, and the feeling, the sensory overload when this happens, when it flops in my face, is unreal. So I might need to do a little bit of a spray to keep that out of the way. Okay, I think we're good. So for fragrance, Ellis Brooklyn. This was a new release last year, and I love it. For me, it's a very specialty summer party scent, and it doesn't need to be. I actually ended up wearing this the other day for a doctor's appointment, which in hindsight, that was an interesting choice, wearing this for a doctor's appointment, because this is like fun, tropical beach flirtation, and doctor's appointments are a little bit more not fun tropical beach parties. This is a fun one. Less is more. This one, I find the mist to be a little bit on the subtle side, so little sprays, and that's why I've used such a small amount in the year I've owned this. But oh my goodness, it is like, I'm wearing this if I'm at a pool party, a virgin pina colada with like, ooh, some pineapple and tahini. That would be delicious. Oh, now I need to go to the grocery store and make that. That would be so exciting. But it's fun, it's fruity, it's got a little bit of spicy, it's tropical, and it's not stuffy. Like, it has warmth, it has sex appeal, but it's not heavy, it's not sticky. You could wear this during the day as you lounge by the pool, and then you could mist a little bit back on before you went for dinner and dancing in the evening. And I feel like with this fragrance and this makeup look, I would do like a big bouncy barrel roll, or I would use a waver and create more of that like tousled mermaid texture for the full beachy look. But I really love this. I love that we took this guava trend and made it feel more cool toned, more appropriate for our summer seasonal color palettes. I will list all the outfit details in the description box down below. I don't think this is still available. I purchased this last year from Torrid. It's one of their like wrap cover-ups. I love them. They're one size fits all, so it doesn't matter if you lose weight, gain weight, it will fit you no matter what. My favorite like layering tank tops. These are just from Old Navy. You get them in a pack of 3. I love getting them on sale because you can get 3 of these nice tank tops. They're a really beautiful ribbed tank top with a V-neck, and when they go on sale, you can get 3 of them for like $10, and they're not like your traditional underlayer rib tank. They have a little bit more substance. They're a little bit thicker. I should say that for later, but that is something that I have really come to appreciate with my transitional journey. Like, I didn't fully get rid of all of my old clothes. Like, some of my boy clothes, I just couldn't part with them. There were things that were very sentimental, so I put them in storage, and now they live in like storage containers in my basement because I just couldn't part with them. But when I was rebuilding my wardrobe, like, we were starting from the ground up. Like, we had to buy new everything, and that can get very expensive. So I had to change a lot of my old shopping habits, but now I have found a lot of joy and like being more frugal, like being more mindful, and really shopping around for pieces that spark joy. And if I can find it on clearance, even better. I love a clearance find. And I find clearance shopping for feminine clothing is way easier than masculine clothing. There's also just a lot more option, but that's a video for a whole nother day. A whole nother day, we will talk about fashion. When I get the nerve to put a full body on YouTube, we will do that. I am currently preparing another room for that, but coming soon when I get the courage. We are going to do a lot more. I've been planning. I just need to get my courage up to share that. But that's enough for today. Until we see each other again, take care of yourself wherever it is you are in the world, and I will see you later. Bye, y'all.